This weekend, fans were upset in Madrid while Barcelona was upset on the road in Pamplona. FIFA announces the Club World Cup venues in case anyone wants that, and Eric Ten Hag would prefer if we did not talk about Bruno. This and more on Monday morning's Morning Kickaround. Welcome. Yes, it is Monday morning, very much a Monday morning. How you doing? How you feeling? Hopefully everyone's doing fine. It was a bit of an intense weekend. My name's Robert Kerr, up from the lower leagues. To the right of me, that man, Jason Davis. How you feeling?
A little bit under the weather today on a Monday. It is a Monday. You're right about that, Robert. And it was a weekend. I mean, wow. You don't ever want some of the things we saw, but it's going to be fascinating to talk about some of the things we saw this weekend.
You survived the hurricane, I hope?
No hurricane where I was. Just normal rainy weather. Saturday actually was very nice, Robert. Thank you for asking. Got outside, but hopefully everybody's being safe, and hopefully, if you are watching us from one of those places that was hit by the hurricane, that you are doing so in a nice warm environment, dry environment.
Yeah, if there's anyone in a storm shelter watching us on your phone, thank you for your dedication, and I hope things get better soon. If you'd like to follow along with the show, like and subscribe to the channel, and hitting those buttons will alert you every time we go live or post a video. Contact us at morningkickaround@gmail.com and mkickaround on X and Instagram. There you go. Thank you so much, Jason. I think there's a lot to tackle, so let's hop right into it, get to the pitch, and hit those long balls.
Long balls.
Monday morning's long balls, the headlines of the weekend. We talked about it on Friday quite a bit. Who was in the hotter seat? And I think one of those seats got real hot over the weekend. Manchester United beaten at home by Spurs. Is Eric Ten Hag in more danger than ever?
I mean, it's like one of those things. Like, isn't there some like weird like philosophical math problem where if you always get halfway closer to the wall, you'll never actually get to the wall? That's like Eric Ten Hag right now, right? Like he just keeps inching a little bit closer and a little bit closer, and a little bit closer to oblivion. No, he will eventually get fired. I think that's pretty safe to say because every manager gets fired at some point, unless you're Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United and maybe a couple others. Whether it comes after this loss to Spurs, my feeling is it might. I mean, it is mid-afternoon in England, in Manchester, as you and I do this show, Robert. And we have not yet heard that Eric Ten Hag has been relieved of his duties. As we have instead, we're just all holding our breath. Well, I'm not holding my breath. That would be dangerous, and I don't care about United that much. But I think a lot of people might be thinking, is it coming? Is the end for Eric Ten Hag? Tarek Ten Hag, that guy too. Eric Ten Hag, is it nigh, as they say?
Well, you'd think that they're into that cycle where the fortunes of the club at large rest on every single result. It seems, or at least it's playing out that way in the tabloids. Like a big win over Spurs probably would have seen headlines like Manchester United back on track with win over Spurs, but they lose 3-0 at home.
Yes,
and
right.
and just the nature of the loss too, going down within the first 3 minutes of the game in a similar fashion, allowing that goal, a runner, to just split the entire team, similar to their Europa League consolation against FC 20, where the player just ran all the way up the field and no one really stopped him. The Spurs did that. Mickey Van de Ven, the fastest player in the Premier League, ran straight through him, crossed the ball, tap in, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, so the way that they open the scoring is certainly a talking point. The red card to Bruno Fernandes, which you teased there in the open, that is also a talking point. And if you want to say anything about Erik ten Hag and his status as Manchester United manager, and there's enough negative stuff about his tenure to think he's already, done most of the work to get fired, and that whatever happened with Bruno, whatever happened in this particular game, it shouldn't be, it shouldn't rest just on that. Bruno Fernandes picking up a red card is not something that Erik ten Hag had a direct hand in. He didn't make Bruno go out and do that. And then, of course, there's also the question of whether it should have been a red card in the first place. And you and I have been watching it all morning, like on repeat. And I don't think I know yet, Robert, if I think that that's a red card or not. For anybody
A lot
who's
of that
seen it,
comes from an intent. I mean, he pretty intentionally raises his boot towards the knee of the Spurs player. And so how much like damaging contact there was, it's hard to say. Like you said, we've been replaying it to re-examine it, but it did look pretty intentional that he raised his stud towards the Spurs player leg.
I mean, he did. I guess it's the studs high part of it, but it's it's not like he went in with force behind him and tried to spike the Spurs player. He kind of lunges and whips his foot out. It's an intentional foul, I guess, in the sense that he knows he should know he's not going to get the ball. He should know that there's no chance of actually tackling the ball, that this is all about slowing down. Who's it, James Madison? Whoever it is, that this is about something that is not within sort of the right way to play the game. But I don't know that I see it as measuring to, oh, that's endangering the safety of the opponent and you deserve to be sent off. That's crazy to me. I think I'm not normally one to defend Bruno Fernandes, but this is not a red card offense, and it does bring up that question. Okay, it's still the first half. What happens if Bruno doesn't go off? Because Spurs get two goals on the other side of halftime. So you very much could argue that United's still in that game at 1-0 down, and that, this wouldn't be a 3-0 loss, and we wouldn't be talking about Erik ten Hag getting fired.
Well, another thing that doesn't help Mr. Ten Hag's case is down in the Chelsea land with Jadon Sancho looking really, really good as he departs Manchester United. Probably doesn't look very good on the United boss either. But the result, 3-0, like you said, the 2 goals come with 10 men. Maybe they would have put up a better fight, if they stayed at full strength. Garnacho, rockets one off the bar. That goes in. Who knows? But it is what it is. The red card, Manchester United down. But at the same time, so to simplify and go back to Bruno Fernandes, he gets red carded. If he doesn't raise his foot, there's no question. And so if he was truly a captain and truly a responsible player, and one of the most experienced players on that United side, should he even be putting himself in the position to make it a question?
That is a good point. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie and say that, or I'm not going to pretend that Bruno Fernandes didn't do something stupid. He did something stupid. He put himself in a position for a referee to make that decision. And you can argue the decision itself, whether it should be yellow or red, but clearly Bruno should not be lifting his foot to make contact with Madison's knee as he goes streaking by him, because that is the thing that pushes the referee to have to make a choice. And even if it's a yellow, it's a stupid foul. Like even if he just gets a yellow for it, it's a stupid foul, and he shouldn't be doing it. Because I mean, you look again, you watch where he is on the pitch and where his teammates are. There's no reason to be worried. You're in Spurs defensive half. Why is that a foul you need to make it in that part of the field? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's not saving a goal by making that rash challenge. Like you said, he's just in the middle of the park, maybe a little frustrated that they went down early to a silly goal. And I was looking for the word. I don't know if pedantic is the right word or immature, but just not thoroughly thoughtful actions by one of United's key players, leaving them shorthanded and really leaving Ten Hag out there in the breeze.
Yeah. Bad times for United for sure. Good times for Spurs to get that victory after we talked about them on Friday. So, England delivering some nonsense and some tomfoolery. What else we got, Robert? What else is
Mean,
out there?
Meanwhile, in the Iberian Peninsula, Spanish football, the biggest game of the weekend, it was the Madrid derby. Ends 1-1, but that's not really the biggest talking point, as the game had to be halted and postponed for a few minutes, a few different times, after fans started throwing lighters and other nefarious objects onto the field
Oh, the
after.
objects were nefarious. The intentions were definitely nefarious. I'm not sure the objects themselves can be imbued with nefariousness,
Well,
but okay.
okay. So the nefarious objects comes with, there was a bag in the article I read. It said a bag of unknown contents,
I see. I
and
see.
that seems
Could be
nefarious to me.
anything.
It
It's
could.
like a Schrodinger's bag. Like we don't know what's in it until we open it up, and then okay, yeah, all right.
All right. So the
Meanwhile,
game ends 1-1, but it really all set off after um, Real opened the scoring, and the goalie, who many Atleti fans call a bit of a turncoat because he was once a Atleti player, he celebrated big after the Real
Thibaut
goal.
Courtois. Yeah,
Thibaut
that's what we're
Courtois
talking about here. Yeah,
celebrated big time after the goal, which infuriated the fans quite a bit.
yeah. Look, the tensions, run high. The rivalry is intense. I mean, I think, outside of Spain, and I'm not going to pretend to be a Spanish football expert, but
Oh, you spent some time there this summer.
outside of Spain, we're all focused on the Clásico. It makes sense that we do. El Clásico is usually the game that determines the champion of Spain. It's Real Madrid and Barcelona. Those are the big clubs. But Atleti thinks of themselves as a big club. They have won titles in the Simeone era. They have achieved things and brought trophies to the Metropolitano. And clearly there's something there. Now, you mentioned I went to Spain. I told people I adopted Atleti because I didn't want to be a front runner and pick Real Madrid. Well, now I'm questioning my decision based on the behavior of the fans. And look, I should have known better, right? Should have done a little bit more thinking about it, because it's not like Atleti fans have not been known to do certain nefarious things to your word in the past. And there was already, leading into this game, word out that the Atleti fans in that particular end of the stadium were going to be wearing balaclavas and covering their faces. And I think the word was that they intended to say things to Vinicius Jr. that are horrific and should not be said by anybody to anybody else, but especially in that kind of setting. So this take over to throwing things at Courtois, which, by the way, let's also say that as denizens of a CONCACAF nation, we are familiar with things being thrown on the pitch. This is not, for us, it's like, whatever. This happens every week in CONCACAF somewhere. But it shouldn't happen, right? It obviously shouldn't happen. And it took Simeone going over, and it took some of the Athletic players going and trying to calm down those fans and explain to them, look, this is not what, you can't do this. You have to stop doing this. And I've seen Guillaume Balaguer talk about this on video recently in the aftermath, and he said there are laws in place to make sure these people cannot go to games, that they cannot impact the events of the field this way, and it's up to the Spanish authorities to apply those laws. And that's, we're going to talk more about Spanish football and some of the culture things that have happened recently, but this is clearly a problem for Spanish football that goes beyond just, we're going to deal with it on a case by case basis. There's something else at play here that really needs to be dealt with. And then, of course, there's the result. And Atleti gets the equalizer, and they split the points with Real Madrid, and that's going to have an impact on the title race, which it's still early everywhere, but it's going to have an impact on the title race, as is the other game that you've alluded to, Robert, which is what?
Osasuna shock Barcelona 4-2. I caught the highlights of this. Some really fantastic goals. Osasuna all over Barcelona in this. I think this is the first time they've gotten a win over Barcelona since 2020, and the biggest scoreline in over 10 years.
Yeah, this is obviously a surprise result. Hansi Flick's time at Barcelona had been going so well. I mean, it's
First bump in the road. Major bump in the road.
Yeah, 7 wins from 7. They had given up They've given up 5 goals in those 7 matches up to that point, up to this match against Osasuna. What was at play here and why it went this way? Maybe it's just an aberration. Maybe it's something that Hansi Flick can move past quickly. I mean, no one's going to say he hasn't done a very good job so far. And obviously, we're witnessing the arrival of a truly generational talent, perhaps, in Lamine Yamal, who did score in this loss again. So, no one's going to panic in Barcelona. But as you said, these are dropped points. Like, we're talking about things happening in the early part of the season, and sometimes we act like they're not as important as things that happen down the road. But the points are all the same. And if you drop points now, then it might affect you later. No matter how good you are later in the season, because you have opponents who can be just as efficient at collecting points based on their own schedules and their own abilities.
After just 8 games, Barcelona still holds a 3-point lead over Madrid. Long ball number 3, FIFA announces the Club World Cup venues. Strange topic, but worth noting. We like to bring all the news back home here. So 2025 FIFA Club World Cup is to be held in the United States. The venues were announced over the weekend, and it is East Coast heavy.
It is East Coast heavy. Yeah. Here's the actual stadiums, Robert. Mercedes-Benz Atlanta, TQL Stadium, Cincinnati, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami, Geodis Park, Nashville, MetLife Stadium, New York, New Jersey. That's New Jersey. Bank of America. This is FIFA's listing, by the way. So if you're like, oh, why is FIFA's the one that put these things together? Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Inter and Co Stadium. That's the Orlando City Stadium. So two Orlando venues, one the big football stadium, the other the MLS building. The Rose Bowl in Los Angeles, Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Lumen Field in Seattle, and Audi Field in D.C. So the only West Coast, and here's the geographical breakdown, the only West Coast are Seattle and L.A., and, not this. There's something else at play here, right? Remind us what else is happening around this time.
This also will be running concurrently with the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, of course. And so that's going to be on the West Coast. So we're going to have, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the pushback that's going on here and kind of organizations kind of at odds with each other, players speaking out against this competition, and schedule congestion left and right. That Nashville venue, is that the football stadium or is that Nashville Stadium?
That's Nashville Stadium. That's Nashville's MLS building. It holds 30,000. It's the biggest, I believe it's the biggest soccer specific stadium in the country at this point.
And that graphic also has the logo there, which I hadn't really taken too much notice. The CWC Club World Cup.
Quite terrible. It looks like Mickey Mouse melted or something. I'm not quite sure. Or like Wario and Mickey Mouse got together and had a baby, if you know those references. That's it's not good. It's not good. I don't know why they thought it was, but it's not good, Robert. Yeah.
All right, so Ten Hag's hot seat, mayhem in Madrid, and FIFA announcing the Club World Cup. That's today's long balls. If you want to reach out, like and subscribe the channel for Pete's sake. We're into the triple digits, and we need to keep on pumping those numbers up. Like Matthew McConaughey, you want to pump those numbers up.
I got some goals. I mean, we're in the 140s after a week of shows. I'd like to get us to 200 by next week, and then by 50,000 by the end of the year. Do you think those are realistic goals?
50,000 by the end of the year.
50,000 by the end of the year. I think you got to set goals, Robert.
I'm no mathematician, but that's at least 10,000 per week here.
Okay, let's go. Let's crank it up. Let's.
All right, let's start it. Morning Kickaround on YouTube. Follow us on the socials, Kickaround on X and Instagram, and hit us up at morningkickaround@gmail.com. So I think let's move on. The spiciest topic of the day. Let's go into today's hot topic.
little too much
So
hot
hot,
topic.
so hot we needed to see it twice.
That's right.
Monday's hot topic is Spanish fan culture holding back this new rising golden era of Spanish soccer.
That's an interesting. I think yes. I think yes. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and answer the question that you just posed. I can't see how it's not. I mentioned Lamine Yamal. He is becoming one of the brightest young stars in world football, and he's only 17. You know, Spain obviously comes off the European Championship. Now, worth noting that they went back and they looked at that Marc Cucurella handball against Germany, and it should have been a penalty, and who knows what would have happened. There's some alternate timeline where Spain did not win the European Championship this summer, but in our world, they did. You
And
obviously have.
and the
Go ahead.
Spanish women were one upset to Brazil away from Spain holding literally every single international
Well, there you
championship.
go. You got that as well. You know, the club side of it, right? Real Madrid is still Real Madrid. You know, they are the biggest club in the world. They've signed the biggest player in the world and added him to a group that already had Vinicius Jr., who might be your Ballon d'Or winner come next month. You've got Jude Bellingham, who before Lamine Yamal showed up was probably the brightest young player on the planet, and
Yeah.
Jude Bellingham still is an incredible player. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's a little bit older than Lamine Yamal. Feels like he's old. It's so old that Jude Bellingham. He's what is he? 21 now? That's crazy.
He's been a
Now
pro for quite a few years, to be
he
fair. He
has. I mean,
started
obviously
early. He started early.
started early. Started as young as Lamine Yamal. He just wasn't doing it at he wasn't doing it at a big club like
Birmingham,
Barcelona. The way.
Birmingham City, Barcelona, pretty similar.
Oh yeah, exactly the same. Start with B. That's about where it ends. But you know, then of course you can talk about the depth of the division, the depth of La Liga. It's not just Barcelona, Real Madrid, or even Atleti if you want to throw them into the mix. It is they are. Girona was an incredible story last year, and whatever you feel about multi-club ownership, whatever you feel about the way that Girona was able to have the kind of talent necessary to make a Champions League spot last year, it was still a great story. And then there's the Basque clubs. Both of them play really good soccer. I mean, Nico Williams is one of my favorite players from the summer. Even before that, for what he did with Spain. You know, there is depth here, there is history here, and yet we keep running into Spanish fans behaving badly as a factor in how you feel about Spanish football if you are not already attached to a club or if you're not Spanish, I guess. Right? Again, I'll bring this back to I'll make it about me, Robert. I'll make it about me for a second.
Of
Went
course.
to Spain, enjoyed my time in Spain, didn't get a chance to do much football stuff because it was not that kind of trip and it was in the middle of the summer. It was post European Championship and before the new club season began. But, you know, I did kind of want to get a little bit of a connection. Got a chance to see Real Betis Stadium in Sevilla, or at least see it from the outside, see the neighborhood, see the vibe. I got I got a little taste of things in Madrid, Barcelona, that kind of stuff, and I would love to just jump head first into Spanish football now that I feel like I have more of a connection with the country more than now that I have a bit of an understanding. And I've always made jokes like no one should just pick a team out of the blue because you like the color scheme or something. But, you know, we can't gatekeep and fandom starts in a myriad of ways. So if I'm in Spain, hey, maybe I want to adopt a team. Oh, look, I really like this new Atleti shirt that they have. And I see so much Real Madrid gear in Madrid. I'm going to go buy an Atleti shirt and maybe I'll decide to, halfway adopt Atleti.
Yeah, how
I'm not.
visible was Atleti compared to Madrid when you were there?
It's I'm sure it's like Yankees Mets if you're in New York. It's
Like 3-1,
mostly
4-1?
yeah, something like that. Something like that. Probably 5-1. I mean, remember that, and I'm sure this is true in New York too. I guess now I think about it, it's a lot of tourists running around in Real Madrid stuff. As much as it is locals, there's lots of tourists as well. And I was a tourist, and I went searching for the Atleti gear shop in Madrid. Like I chose to go find the Atleti store rather than look for the Real Madrid store. By the way, and of course, Barcelona stuff is sold everywhere too to the tourists. Doesn't matter if you're in Madrid or not. There's Barcelona stuff everywhere too. But I'm not sure that I'm completely comfortable deciding to be an Atleti fan because I'm not the fans that threw things at Thibaut Courtois. I'm not the fans that racially abused Vinicius Jr. I would never do those things. But now do I have to feel guilty, ashamed of their behavior because if I want to support Atleti? I mean, is it going to push? I mean, even if I can intellectualize that these are different things, I can support the club from afar. It have nothing to do with the fans that live in Madrid that have done this stuff, or in Spain in general, because Vinicius Jr., of course, racially abused in a number of places in Spain. I still can't help but feel uncomfortable about it. So how can it not impact Spanish football's popularity around the world?
Another aspect to the situation on Sunday in Madrid, your guy Simeone, the coach for the club you're dabbling with supporting, he said that the Courtois might have had something to do with it, and the protagonists shouldn't maybe incite the crowd. How do you feel about that? I mean, does a player have the right to celebrate any which way he wants without any sort of retribution or
Man,
misbehavior?
yeah, that is a tough one, right? Because I don't like policing celebration. I'm one of those people who says that if you are playing for a new club against your own club and you score a goal, you should be allowed to celebrate. There shouldn't be any of this, he shouldn't celebrate. It's his old club. No, stop it. Goals don't come that often. They're not so regular a thing that you shouldn't be allowed to celebrate a goal, even when you score against your former team. I get a player making a choice. You know, Harry Kane making a choice not to celebrate or touch a trophy in preseason against Tottenham. Whatever. Okay, good for you, Harry. I guess. But I don't. If somebody chooses to celebrate, I don't like the tisk that happens afterwards. This is this is maybe different, I guess, because of the nature of the relationship between Atleti, Real Madrid, the rivalry, the moment. I mean, there's something to be said for know the moment, understand the vibe, read the room. And Thibaut Courtois is smart enough to know that if you act in a certain way, you're going to rile them. No, he's not responsible for the Atleti fan behavior. That's not he didn't make them do it.
But surely he knows that he can get a reaction from whatever his celebration is.
Yeah, I that's a thing as well. Like,
That
did he?
relationship is not new.
No, absolutely not. Eh, man, it's I want to say that Thibaut Courtois needs to be smarter, but at no point can you say that it's not the fans' responsibility, right? And when we talk about this, what we need to talk about is the authorities' willingness to take the steps necessary to actually change behavior on the part of the fans who feel like they have free reign. And to make it about us, we've seen this in our part of the world. I joke about CONCACAF fans knowing about stuff being thrown on the field. It happens all the time. I mean, I remember that Nations League final. I think it was the one in Denver, right? When we were limited attendance because of COVID. The United States beats Mexico, and Mexican fans are throwing things at the American players. And that is also the same sort of moment when we deal with the chant that fans in the United States who support Mexico are mostly responsible for. I know it's trickled down to Mexico, but my understanding is that chant is mostly a thing done by American-based Mexico fans, and so it's bad behavior. But the authorities, despite all these, we got to have a protocol and this, they've never actually done the thing that will stop the behavior, right? They've never actually said stop the game. Give the points to the other team. The other team wins because you guys are being jerks. They haven't done that, right? And maybe that needs to be done in this case.
Yeah, in the Mexico USA, that's even more difficult because a lot of these are happening in American venues, but with
Right.
Mexican fans. So if you're
Yes.
awarding the home team or the away team with it, like,
Well,
what are you going to parse one by one? This guy Mexican,
that's the
this
thing.
guy
Like we
American.
don't know what's in the heart and mind of an individual fan, and this brings up the possibility. And not to go, not to go InfoWars here on Morning Kickaround, but maybe there's a false flag. Maybe there's a false flag out. I don't know. Like maybe people would. I don't think that's actually happening. But what I'm saying is, it becomes this thing where it's like, oh no, that's not actually the fans of that team who did that thing, that horrific thing. It was the other team's fans pretending to be that team's fans to get the other team in trouble, which is nuts, right? That's just, we're beyond the pale at this point. But what you're saying is actually the real problem. right? Now, look, if you have Atleti fans in the Atleti end of the stadium, in that particular case, in the Ultras end or the Socios end or whatever that it was there at the Metropolitano, you know who you're dealing with. And again, I think the people that are paying attention have seen those particular fans do other things that were abhorrent and probably needed to be dealt with before we got to this moment where Thibaut Courtois celebrates and people start throwing stuff at him.
I mean, it's tough. It's, you want to enforce these rules, but how do you enforce it? Yeah, enforcing anything to a mob is pretty difficult in any circumstance. But I guess if you have absolute answers, it ruins the day for everybody. So that might encourage self-policing. If there's just like one hard example, game shut down, points awarded,
Yeah.
everybody's upset, or maybe neither team gets any points at all, and there's some sort of an omission of points. Neither team awarded any points or something to that degree, because it punishes both. So home and away are trying to self-police to a degree.
Yeah,
But
I guess. I mean, again, there have been moments when games have been played in empty stadiums because of fan behavior. I'd have to go and look and see if people thought those were effective measures, right? I don't know.
I think at one point they were a bit more effective, because I think people to a degree got used to that during COVID, and it might not be as harsh a punishment, or they need to do that for a lengthier period of time. Maybe it's like 10 games.
But I'm saying,
like
but there's all these competing concerns. You've already mentioned trying to police who is who and who supports who and how you deal with that, and particularly when you have, again, in the case of Mexican fans in the United States, these are people who live in the United States, who most of whom are American, who support a different country. So how do you deal with that when the venue belongs to the United States and technically they're responsible on some level for the behavior of the fans, but we're talking about fans who support the other team? And again, this gets into really difficult, and in the club game, it's even tougher to figure that stuff out, because of how the club game works on a domestic level. The problem of trying to fix fan behavior means that you're also bringing into the issue whether or not this is unfair to the players, right? So Vinicius Jr. does not deserve to be racially abused by anybody anywhere. But if you take all the fans out of the building because Vinicius Jr. or any black player has been racially abused, well, that's not good for them, right? And again, it's using a hammer to kill to deal with it's a big problem. But I'm saying you're taking a big swing and doing something major if you say closed doors, no fans, because that punishes Real Madrid fans who hopefully aren't racially abusing their own player. But I mean, it punishes everybody rather than punishing the specific individuals. So then we get to that. Can you punish specific individuals, or do you have to take a big picture approach to dealing with the problem?
No simple answers here, but I think going back to our original question, is Spanish fan culture holding back the new golden era of Spanish soccer? I think it would say yes. We can't, lift it up in its purity and say, this is the pinnacle, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, this is also a world in which we're more keenly aware of these things when they happen. There might have been a time. I mean, this game was paused because of the incidents, the nefarious objects being thrown nefariously at Thibaut Courtois. But there have been times when things have happened and the game hasn't been stopped. There's been no repercussions, and people might not even have been aware. Now at the least, I guess this is a good thing that it's being aired publicly in a lot of cases, right? There are
Vinicius
videos,
very, very, very courageous to make such internationally
Sure.
public statements.
And Vinicius Jr., yes, speaking out has been a major part of that too. There are no easy answers to this problem, but as to the question of whether or not what happened in Spain this past weekend, and in general issues that they've had specifically with racist behavior, whether that's holding back Spanish football, I find it impossible to believe it's not. Absolutely, it must be.
Yeah, maybe there's some players that, if they have their selection of clubs, maybe they don't go there, and enough of those guys don't go to Spain or elect to go somewhere else that, that it's not the pinnacle anymore. Hot topic of the day, weigh in at Kickaround. on X and Instagram, or leave us a comment. We will put up
Yeah,
some of our
comment on this
favorite
video.
comments.
Let us
Yeah,
know what you think. Like, and what steps Spanish football authorities need to take in order to fix this problem.
indeed. And if you want to write us, you want to see it publicly available, write us a little note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. All right, let's move into segment 3. It's getting even more intense. We're heading into the culture wars. All right, heading into Culture Wars for Monday morning. Over the weekend, FIFA announced the venues for the 2025 expanded FIFA Club World Cup. And that brings up questions. A, like where it's going to be. B, it's another step towards it happening. And then C, does anyone really want this? There's been some FIFA and UEFA, public statements going back and forth of, do we want to do this? Don't we want to do this? Players have been speaking out against it. Most recently, Manchester City's Rodri saying that there might be a player strike if there's any more competitions added, and they just don't know if they would have enough in the tank to do another big tournament in the summer. So FIFA versus UEFA continues here.
Yeah. I will add that you mentioned Rodri and saying that there could be a player strike based on the number of fixtures that they're being asked to play at the top level. Jurriën Timber has also added his voice to the chorus there. So, continue to talk. And of course, Timber just came back from a long-term knee injury for Arsenal. And he said, I agree with them. It's a big topic in the dressing rooms. I didn't play last season, so I'm just enjoying playing now, but I understand what they're saying. Now, this is interesting because I clearly the expanded Club World Cup is going to add to the burden of a lot of players. And it's because it's become an issue, this is going to be central. We talked about the in Major League Soccer who decided that they wanted to take their ball and leave the Open Cup or whatever they decided to do. Lots of people say, well, why are you doing Leagues Cup if you have an issue with the schedule congestion? Then there's the international tournaments, right? And it's not just the tournaments, it's also Nations League, which is meant to raise the stakes in every given international window. It's no longer a friendly. Maybe it's, you come in, you train with your teammates, you play a game. It's not really all that important. You're just kind of kicking it around. I mean, friendlies are sometimes intense, but very rarely do they make a player feel like they have to win that game. And the Nations League has changed that a bit. I think that's part of this. So it's not just how many games you're playing, it's how many games you're playing at your full effort levels. And then this thing. So, first of all, can we review what this is, Robert? So we showed the venues earlier in the show. That's one thing. This is the 2025 Club World Cup coming to the United States of America, mostly to be played on the East Coast. I think that's because I don't know because I think there was a choice being made: East Coast for the Club World Cup, West Coast for Gold Cup, which is happening at the exact same time, right? So interesting.
Are you ready for like a 11:30 kickoff between Panama and Jamaica?
Oh yeah, that's going to be brilliant. Where's that going to be? PayPal Park? You can play that one at PayPal Park? I don't know the Gold Cup venues. So this is the breakdown for the Club World Cup. If you're wondering, 4 African teams, 4 Asian teams, 12 European teams, 4 CONCACAF teams, 1 team from Oceania. 6 teams from CONMEBOL in South America, and then 1 team from the host country, and we can even tell you who's qualified. It's a long list. I guess I don't know if I should do the whole list, but Real Madrid's in, City's in, Bayern Munich's in, PSG's in, Inter Milan is in, Benfica, Dortmund, Juventus, Madrid, Porto, Salzburg. From CONCACAF, Monterrey, Seattle Sounders, Club Leon, Pachuca. Those are your CONCACAF nations. I believe I don't know who's representing the United States as the host. Do we know that? I know
Seattle Sounders are involved.
Yeah, but they're in. So again, this is what we're kind of explaining. They're in as the CONCACAF Champions Cup winners from 2022. That's how they made the tournament. So they're not representing. They're not the host nation spot. They've qualified on their own merits. But it doesn't matter, right? So what I'm saying is what we want to get to here is why this is happening, and what. Yeah, it says they over on FIFA.com. It says they haven't determined two spots. One is the host team, the host country's entry, and the other is the CONMEBOL Libertadores winner from 2024. So they're still playing that tournament. But Robert, this is 100% about FIFA and UEFA trying to grab as much of the money available out there in world football as they can and fighting because they are having a battle, because this is a soccer wars scenario. They do not care. There's no consideration for the people involved, mainly the players, right? This is simply about UEFA has the Champions League and has always had the top level club competition on the planet. And they've even expanded it. Hey, we want more teams in the league phase, 36 teams, and we're changing the format and all these things. And then, you can argue whether it's fun or not, or whether these games will mean more or feel big and those kind of things. We're Champions League games coming up this week, getting ready for Champions League games tomorrow and Wednesday. But the bottom line is that UEFA is doing everything they can to make sure they hold on to their market share of having the biggest club competition on the planet. And FIFA is jealous of that. FIFA doesn't want UEFA to be able to say they have the biggest club competition on the planet. It doesn't matter that you and I and most people traditionally think of FIFA as the organizers of the World Cup or big tournaments like that, the Men's World Cup, the Women's World Cup, the Youth World Cups, those kind of things. FIFA says, well, we also sanction all the leagues. Why shouldn't we get a piece of what's going on? Why shouldn't we be able to organize our own tournament with the clubs and get a big chunk of money too? And that's what this is. The Club World Cup being expanded to this level, this ridiculous level that Gianni Infantino has decided we should do, is all about money. And it's all about trying to cut into what UEFA has. I mean, I don't know if Johnny himself would say, well, I'm trying to damage UEFA. That might not even be possible based on the strength of the Champions League. But 100% this is about money. And I don't know how to feel if I should be like excited that something like this is coming to my country, because normally as an American soccer fan, Robert, that's how we would feel, or if I should be annoyed, angered, disappointed, disgusted by FIFA's behavior.
And it's also trying to capture market. I mean, the FIFA and UEFA eyes are about this big when they see the dollar signs in the United States with the growing interest in the game here stateside, and when they see those international friendlies where separate groups that aren't them are bringing over the international clubs to the United States, that's money that they're not getting. And they see that a lot of those games are drawing crowds. And so they're trying to capture as many dollars as they can. So like, oh, what can we make those bigger? More clubs, more games, more of everything, really. And let's try to capture all those dollars and all that goodwill as fast as we can. And kind of banking on the fact that the casual American fan probably won't know what this is doing to the larger scale soccer calendar.
Well, but Robert, I mean, I get that. You're probably right about that. And we're talking about friendlies. We're usually talking about some of the biggest clubs in the world, certainly clubs that have a lot of reach in America. But in this tournament, I mean, because FIFA has to dress this up as a World Cup and hey, we're doing this because it's important to determine a club champion of the world when nobody's asking for that. Al Ali of Egypt, Wydad of Morocco, El Tunis of Tunisia. I mean, the Mamelodi Sundowns. You know what
I do like the fact that we'll get to see and we get to learn about other clubs. Like I don't know much about those clubs, but that's almost just like a byproduct rather than the purpose.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess if you're go into this thinking it's sort of like the NCAA basketball tournament and you're going to learn about a team from the Suncoast Conference or whatever, like, okay, there's something to that. These games, I mean, there's going to be a group stage. I imagine there'll be a mix, obviously, based on coefficients or something, rankings of some type. But you're not going to get many people out to be watching Al Ain or Ain of the UAE. Sorry if I butchered that. I shouldn't chose that club. Why am I saying a club I can't say, Jason? Against I don't know, against Salzburg or somebody
in Nashville.
In that, well, yeah, who knows where? In Nashville, exactly, exactly. And I guess I just don't know who this is for. I don't know who it's for. I suppose you can say something like, "We need to start it," because you never know, or you can't build a fan base, or you can't build excitement, or you can't build history with something unless you start it. But this feels unnecessary.
Should this be
And
something that the United States Soccer Federation should be pushing back against? Because again, it's another product that isn't an American soccer product.
what is I'm sure U.S. Soccer is invested somehow in this competition. Although we'll come to a major point about where we are with this competition in a second. But I don't know that U.S. Soccer has any sort of ability to push back against FIFA. And this goes around. I mean, U.S. Soccer, I guess, has to sign off. But if FIFA says, "Hey, we're gonna play this tournament. We want to do it in the United States. We just need you to sign here and sign here and sign here," U.S. Soccer is gonna be like, "Wait a second, we don't like this," and FIFA's gonna say, "What? No, sorry, you have to like this, and also you're gonna get paid, or also you're gonna get a chunk." And I don't know what that is.
Probably what you'll still get paid probably quiets any objections in the long term, right?
Probably. I mean, look, I do think that, it's really hard to imagine U.S. Soccer saying no to something that could potentially draw interest to the game in America. That's their job. And even if you don't love this, even if you think it's not for anybody right now, they're gonna say, well, it's gonna help us grow the sport because all these big teams are gonna come to America and people are gonna want to watch them. Okay, sure. But by the way, speaking of people wanting to watch them, last time I checked, there's no TV partner for this yet, right?
Nope.
There's nobody signed up, and American companies. I mean, we don't even know where we can watch this in our own country on television, much less around the world. I mean, this is the thing that I think is most indicative of the lack of enthusiasm for this idea, and something that Gianni Infantino clearly missed. Nobody's chomping at the bit to sign a television rights deal with FIFA over this.
Yeah,
And
nothing
last we
on.
heard,
There was a some sort of a tender put out, and there was a deadline that's passed.
he called a bunch of people into a meeting and said, "Hey, you need to start bidding on this because we do business with you on other properties, and who knows what might happen with those other properties if you're not helping us out with the FIFA Club World Cup." I mean, again, everything is so thirsty and desperate from FIFA on this that it drenches the entire competition in this like, just failure before it's even begun, right? Doesn't it feel like this is something that is probably going to come and go, and we'll go, what just happened? What was that? I mean, can you imagine a Club World Cup final featuring, I don't know, Manchester City and somebody else that is at MetLife with 75,000 people? I guess it's possible. I don't know how we get there, and how this becomes a thing that people actually want to see and get themselves involved with.
The Club World Cup in its previous iteration, where it was just a handful of clubs, is one of those things where the only people that cared about them are the teams that are specifically in them. And so I guess you could get more interest potentially if there's more clubs, and then just kind of the water level is raised high enough by so many teams getting involved that they raise interest just by particular fan bases raising up. But if there's enough pushback from those big clubs, it really won't have the impact you think that FIFA or is wanting from this. Because I mean, there's already huge names standing out and speaking out against this tournament. I recall a quote from Carlo Ancelotti, the Real Madrid head coach, saying that Real Madrid would refuse its invitation to this tournament. That quote was back in June, so I'd have to look in to see if they've reversed on that decision. But the fact that the coach, one of the biggest coaches in the whole world, and one of the biggest coaches of one of the biggest clubs in the whole world, would publicly speak out and saying that they would refuse their invitation is telling in its own right of the general sentiment against it. Welcome back, Jason. I was just explaining how this could be borderline what we call it, unprecedented if teams refused their invitations. Because I was just referencing a
Yeah.
quote from
Yeah.
Carlo Ancelotti back in June saying that Real Madrid, biggest club in the world, Champions League champions, may refuse or plan to refuse their bid. I don't know if there was discussions over the summer where they made him walk that back or no,
Oh,
but
yeah, for
it does.
sure. For
It
sure.
definitely speaks to the sentiment within, the actual soccer side of it. I was just thinking, like, the clubs in the Club World Cup as it was in the past, you only really care about it if your team is in it. I never cared about it until Liverpool was in it and won it.
Sure.
And
Sure.
then so maybe if you invite 1.5 million teams, those individual fan bases will all tune in to where you get to kind of raise all the levels and get an audience. But if teams like Real Madrid, like, you think if they decline their invitation, that would dent this hugely, and would they kind of like set the stage
Of
for a lot of
course.
other clubs to
Of
pull out?
course. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Ancelotti I think he was expressing frustration over fixture congestion, the lack of an off season for players. I mean, and this is a situation where, lots of players get pulled into international duty in the summer and don't get a ton of downtime. And now even the ones who don't have international obligations are being asked to play in a tournament. And that's the other thing about this is that FIFA is going to demand that everybody take this seriously. Now, you can't make the players and make the coaches put their full effort into it, and I don't know how that's going to play out, right? Like it'll definitely undermine the integrity, which is a hilarious thing to even say right now, but it'll definitely undermine the integrity of this competition if a Liverpool or a Real Madrid or somebody like that, Manchester City, bows out in the group stage or in the round of 16 or something because they clearly do not care that much. Maybe Pep plays all the kids. I mean, this is preseason for us. We're warming up for the Premier League. We want to go win another title. Why am I going to put my best players on the field? And how is FIFA going to respond to that? I mean, they're setting the stage for something like that to happen a lot. And it seems as though they are just oblivious to this idea that there might not be a lot of enthusiasm, not just from fans and television companies, but from the actual players and coaches themselves. And I think you're right about Ancelotti being forced to back down from what he said, but I don't think you can police the enthusiasm, right? There's no thought police element for FIFA here. And you're setting yourself up to be humiliated, honestly. If nobody comes to the games, and I'm not saying I want that, but if nobody goes to certain games, then that's a bad look. If nobody buys the television rights, that's a bad look. And if the players and the coaches don't put in full effort, that's a bad look.
Do you think there's any way that this doesn't happen? I mean, if they've walked or if they've made plans this far and they've obviously put a lot into this, but I mean, if they don't get the TV deal that they want, is it possible that they say, "Hey, let's push this out a couple of years"?
Wow. I think probably FIFA's gone too far down the road to turn back at this point. I think this is going to happen next year. That whether or not it continues to happen, I think it is set for every 4 years or something. They're not doing this every summer. But it does. If it's really, 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 really bad the first time, whether it survives again, I don't know.
And you'd think that they've thought of the possibilities. I bet in some sort of a contract or some sort of in the invitation, I bet there probably would be a first team requirement, like X amount of first team regulars have to have this amount of
That
appearances and
seems
stuff
like
like that.
that seems like a crazy thing to impose on clubs, considering the fixture demands, but possibly. Possibly. But then we're just going to have broken players, more and more and more broken players, and wonder why we're not watching the highest level of soccer anymore.
I blame COVID.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, everything's been messed up since then. No one's really gotten a break really since then, and adding more competitions only making it a little bit more complicated. So to answer your question, why is it a thing? I think it just comes down to money and power, right?
Money, money, money. It's always about money.
All right, I think we've warred enough with our culture for Monday morning. If you want to weigh in, hit us up at or it's a or oh wow.
First, like and subscribe.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
like the video that you're watching. Sorry for my
Thanks, Ron.
technical issues. I'm not sure what happened, but we'll fix that. Like and subscribe to the channel. This is the first episode we've done where we didn't push this to the Best Soccer Show channel. I think fewer people are finding us this morning, which makes a lot of sense. But if we add to those subscriber numbers, well, then more people are involved on the regular during the live show, which is definitely what we want. And leave a comment if you're watching this later. Leave a comment below on the question of the Club World Cup and everything else we've talked about today.
Kickaround on the social media, Kickaround on X and Instagram, Morning Kickaround, YouTube, follow, like it, like Jason said, for Pete's sake. We're trying to get beyond 200 by the end of the week, right? And then up to 50,000 by 2025.
That's right. That's exactly. Those are the two goals.
One follower per Club World Cup team.
Perfect. I think we'll get there. That's how we do it. Yeah. If you love the Club World Cup, subscribe to the show.
All right. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Nate, for throwing in the comments here. Good morning to you. Yeah. And then reach out, morningkickaround@gmail.com. If you want to partner up, sponsor one of these or the whole entire show, why not? Or send us a question, comment, or concern. Before we leave for the day, you got any parting shots for us, Mr. Jason Davis?
Parting shots. Wow, put me on the spot. Yeah, I don't think that was a red card for Bruno Fernandes, but United is still a mess, and Ten Hag might get fired. I think people should not throw things at players. That's my hot take of the day. Don't throw things at players.
I love the don't throw things. That's an easy one.
Don't throw things at players. Also, yeah, Club World Cup. Not sure I'm into it. Maybe I'll be converted before we get there in 2025. Sure, why not? Yeah, please support the show. Subscribe. Actually, in addition to subscribing, which is very important, tell somebody else about Morning Kickaround, that it exists, because that's the only way we're going to get more listeners and more people involved and keep us going, is if you let somebody know, a soccer fan that you know that we're here and can fill part of your morning on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I think, since we'll pull back the curtain a little bit, the goal is to go full 5 days a week, one day, when we can justify it. So the faster we get there to the 50,000 that I mentioned, the faster we get to 5 days a week. All right, Mr. Kerr, thank you.
We got to get the Al Ali fans in the mix.
That's right. Al-Aid. A-I-D. How do you say that, Robert?
I'm comfortable with your pronunciation,
okay.
Jason.
I said it 3 different ways, so you're comfortable with all 3 ways that I said it.
We'll let that lie. And my parting shot is Liverpool, top of the league.
Oh, there you go. Thank you very much.
The most important part of the day. All right, see you Wednesday, guys. Morning Kickaround out.